Welcome from the deep. I am Mike the Finder.
And I am Book of Brett.
And today we are talking about the 2014 film, The Babadook.
The psychological thriller horror drama movie, The Babadook.
It's definitely trying to be everything under the sun all at once. And that is one of the reasons that I think that this is kind of an interesting film to talk about. Now,
yep.
This was Brett's pick. Brett, why did you pick this? This seems like one I would choose.
Because we spent half an hour on the phone and I couldn't decide, and then I found one.
Okay.
I mean, because this movie is groundbreaking, and I saw it years ago, and it was so good that we had to watch it.
Well, it was my first time watching it. You've seen it several times.
A couple times. I've seen it a couple times.
Okay.
The first time I saw it, I was not really paying attention to it. The second time I watched it, I actually paid attention to it. And the third time, I realized that I didn't pay as much attention the second time as I was paying the third time.
That's the mark of a good film.
Yeah, The Babadook is about a single mother raising a child with like insane behavioral issues. And a book shows up one day called Mr. Babadook. They read the book, and by reading the magical incantations there within, are haunted by the Babadook. Or so we think.
And then, as we usually do, let's jump over to IMDb here. The Babadook from 2014, an hour and 34 minutes. This has a 6.8 on IMDb, which is significantly higher than I would have pegged it. Horror, mystery, written and directed by Jennifer Kent. Interesting. I did not know this was written and directed by the same person. Just a little personal history here for me. This is a movie that has been sitting on my shelf 5 years, maybe, if not longer.
Yeah. Didn't you say you own 2 copies?
I do. And what's funny, I'm going to have to show you this now. Hang on.
Uh-oh. Here we go. Mike has a really unhealthy obsession with buying movies. He'll buy multiple copies of it's why no human being could get through that wall in a reasonable amount of time. And so here we have The Babadook, 2 copies. And I was just sitting here waiting and not talking shit at all. Yeah,
no, I definitely believe that. What's funny is I found out today I have 2 of the exact same copies. They're not even different copies, right?
You know, when I do this with VHS, it costs me $1.
I know.
When you do that, it costs 20 to 30.
These are both used. I will point that out. So okay. I did not buy either one of these brand new.
5 to 10.
But this is the Scream Factory IFC release of The Babadook.
It's a really boring release, if that's the...
Well...
Is that a special...
Huh?
Is that a special release?
No, it's a pretty regular release. It's just released by Scream Factory and IFC Midnight as a co-release, I think.
Okay.
But what's funny about this is I also own this, which is also an IFC Scream Factory release.
Is that a steelbook?
No, it's a slipcover, and what's under the slipcover is fucking this.
Okay.
So I don't know how I ended up with this because these were purchased so many years ago. I don't remember when I bought these. I don't know. I don't know, but I have 2 of the exact same copies of this, which is kind of a bummer. But the slipcover is cool because it looks like the actual book, right? And it's even textured like the actual book.
Oh, that's cool.
Anyway, personal history with me on this. I do own 2 copies of this, apparently, and it's been sitting on my shelf for 5 years or so. And it's just a movie that the only real reference point I have is a line from the show You're the Worst, when one of the guys is having a freak out at a party and he's being dragged out, and the thing he says is, "Don't watch The Babadook, guys. Seriously, it's so scary," as he's being pulled out of the door.
The most recent thing I've seen about The Babadook is that meme where it's just the mom going, "Why can't you be normal?" And then just a screen grab of the kid going, "Ah!" and so when that scene happened in this movie, I couldn't help but laugh, even though it's this super tense scene. And so that kind of ruined it. So thanks, Reddit, for ruining part of this movie for me.
Yeah, I've never seen that meme before. And since I'd never seen the movie, I wouldn't have known where it was from anyway.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's just start out with your overall thoughts on the Babadook. Then I'll give you mine. We'll go into specifics, and then we'll talk about the ending and give it ratings.
I really I enjoyed it for the most part. I did not think as what's his name, William or Keith Winfield, or the guy that did the Exorcist, said it's the most terrifying film he's ever seen. I will say it's not that scary.
No.
It's more this has more of a thriller vibe than a horror vibe to it, I think. This is a really scary horror movie for people who don't like horror movies.
That's a really good way to put it.
I will say there is a lot going on. There are a lot of moments in this movie that are incredibly tense and uncomfortable where, and the Babadook isn't even on screen. I won't get too ahead of myself, but I will say that I find the ending to be one of the most infuriating endings to a movie that I've watched in a while. No, I take that back. I just watched Pinocchio 2022, and I screamed at the screen at the end of that. This did not make me scream. However, this made me go, you just feel like they just didn't know how to end it. So there are a lot of good tense moments in here, and I think it makes a really good comment on dealing with a child with needs. I think it does a really good job of that, but I would not call this a horror movie, and I could not for the life of me figure out why it was continuously being classified or categorized as a horror movie, because there's really only 2 or 3 parts in this movie that are really horror, and the rest of it's mostly just thriller.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with most of that. I think that the subtext in this is a mother trying to take care of a child who has special needs, not necessarily, it's not necessarily mental health issues.
No, it comes off as autism.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe that I got, was that it was autism. Definitely ADHD, but I know, if I'm not mistaken, I think ADHD is actually part of the spectrum. I could be wrong on that, so if I'm wrong, don't crucify me for that.
I'm actually not sure.
You definitely get, if it's not autism, it's definitely an extreme version of like ADHD or something like that, because it's not like a learning disability, it's a behavioral disability.
Right. Well, and I think, again, the subtext is mostly the mental toll this takes on taking care of a kid that has needs like that.
Right.
And in that way, I think it definitely hits its mark. But being a scary horror movie is not something I think this film attains. I think you're right as far as this. It's a great way to put it. This is a film. This is a good horror movie for people that don't like horror movies, because this is not necessarily scary. There are parts I outright laughed at the Babadook in this.
Wait, like which parts?
Well, the predator raptor sound that it makes right out of Jurassic Park. It is literally the same exact sound.
Yeah, dude. I had an issue with that too.
Like I literally laughed out loud at that part, and it happens twice. And also his movement is just not scary to me, like even a little bit. I feel like his weird floating stuff is kind of scary, but the quick jerky stuff and I just don't, it didn't get me at all.
Yeah. I think, first of all, I do love the design of the Babadook. Just as a creature, as an entity, I do, there is something just fun and creepy about him, because he does have human-like features. And for me, something with human-like features, but that is still like clearly there's something wrong with it, that to me is a lot creepier than an outright just creature that's made to be terrifying for the sake of being terrifying.
Right.
There's something, especially when you're talking in the psychological realm, I think the design of the Babadook works really well within the context of what they're trying to achieve with this movie, because it is human-esque, but there's something wrong with it. There's something off about it. I will say there's that scene where she's looking across the way into her neighbor's living room, and then he's like right back there.
Yes.
That scene was really cool. But that's why he works so well, because all of him is just black, and then he's just got this white, creepy face. And so it works really well from a lighting perspective too, because you can get away with a lot and still bring the face out while keeping him in the shadows too. And so I thought that was really cool.
Well, I think in general he's scarier the less we see of him, and unfortunately,
yeah,
I kind of feel like they might show a little too much of him a little too soon, and so he becomes not this crazy thing that I've built up in my brain, but he's just guy in top hat with Lady Deathstrike fingers. So it's not that scary to me, but
I would say
the less you show him, the scarier he would be. And the scene you're talking about, but the scene you're talking about, the reason that's scary is because we see him for half a second and then he goes away, but it's also one of the first times we see him and we see his face. We like straight up see his face. And so therefore the rest of the movie, when I'm looking at him, I know what his face looks like. And so it's less scary to me.
Well, and I don't think that was the first time we see him. We actually see
that might be true.
That's not the first time we see him, but my issue wasn't so much that they showed it. Definitely one of the first. Yeah. I didn't think it was so much that they showed him too early. I feel like it's more that once they did show him, they showed him too much.
Well, and yes, that too. That I completely agree with. Yeah.
I actually didn't think they brought him in too early. I actually think that there were a couple scenes, like the scene where the kid is just screaming in the car because the Babadook's in the car. That scene, although not scary, is super uncomfortable and tense. And I thought they did a really good job of creating a scene like that in the middle of the day without showing him at all. And so I did really like that. So like I said, there were moments of this movie that I really liked. However, I know that this movie is highly, highly regarded, and I don't share that sentiment for the movie.
Well, here's the thing, man, is I think, what was her name? Jennifer Kent, is that right? Yeah. In my opinion, Jennifer Kent is probably a pretty big fan of Eraserhead, because there's some serious Eraserhead vibes, not necessarily in the camera work or the color palette or anything, but in the way that she tries to get you to feel about the kid. Because in the beginning of this movie, the thing that I had a real hard time getting past is every character in this movie is so unlikable, especially the kid. I don't like the mom. Her friend is mean. The only person that's not necessarily unlikable, or the only two people, is the old lady and the guy that comes over from work who doesn't play any part in the plot whatsoever. I don't know why he's there. But I agree. You can't
make an hour-long movie.
Well, this is an hour and a half, and that's kind of why I was surprised. But no, my point is I dislike all of the characters in this. And so when I dislike, this is a me thing. When I dislike a character in a movie, there are less stakes because I don't necessarily give a shit what is happening to them if it's a bad thing. So the kid is so unlikable at the front end of this movie. And again, I get what they're going for. It's like Eraserhead vibes where you're feeling the mother's pain on what she's dealing with on a daily basis. And I get all of that. But it just doesn't stop. It goes on forever. And it's and it's annoying.
What I would really like to know is, if this kid is resemblant of whoever has the behavioral issue that this kid has, and I don't know if it's autism, but seriously, it feels like it. Is this a good representation of that? And the reason I want to know that is because would we feel differently about it if we could relate to the kid's problem? Because like at first, he feels like this kid that just has like ADHD, and I could kind of relate to that because I know that when I was growing up and I had really bad ADHD, still do, but when I was a kid, I used to, like, me and my parents would fight all the time and I would feel very misunderstood. And so like I wanted to sympathize with the kid from that standpoint, but as we go along, I just found myself sympathizing more with the mom As far as like when she gets frustrated, I'm like, no, sweetheart, I get that. This movie has its issues, but it is by no means a garbage film. I mean, there's definitely a lot going on here with the with the dead husband and the kid with special needs,
right?
And the Babadook, and then her job and all of that. But I feel like it all kind of, you know, it is a lot, and you can tell that there is a lot going on. Sometimes it's tied in better than others, but I feel like there was a pretty, I don't know, I felt there was a pretty decent mix of everything going on. But again, I feel like the ending is just, I feel the ending is where this, I guess I'll put it the easiest. I was really on board with this movie until like the very, very end.
Before it gets to the ending, there's a lot of great tension building. The tension building in this movie is fantastic, but it's almost counterproductive to the villain they have for me, because the villain is so, his movement and his voice and everything is so goofy almost that it just didn't, I don't know. It's amazing that they're able to build such tension with such a goofy ass character. I don't understand how they did it.
The Babadook.
Yeah. Because I don't know. The book, the very fact that it's a children's book is kind of weird and didn't really do anything for me. It didn't add to how scary it was. It's kind of a cool idea, but it doesn't add to how scary he is.
For me, what doesn't make sense is, why does reading the book bring the Babadook out?
Well, and that's what's so goddamn frustrating, is we don't get any answers.
No, we just, the book's there.
Any answers.
And so now the Babadook is there.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like, you don't know. I don't know. I would be willing to bet Jennifer, what's her name? Jennifer Kent doesn't know either.
Well, yeah, because usually there's like an incantation or a gem, or somebody needs some chalk to draw something. Right. Like, usually there's like a thing that summons the thing, or even just like, although I guess you could say the same thing about The Ring. I mean, the whole reason you're affected in The Ring is because you're watching a movie, and it's not much different, I guess.
No, but that's a thing that happens that you put in motion. A book showing up. Where did it come from? Did the Babadook put it there? What dimension is he from? Any of this stuff?
We don't know that. We don't know that it's not because they read the whole book.
No. I understand that. I'm saying, where the hell did the book come from? The tape gets passed around from person to person. Like, there's this story that if you watch this tape, you're gonna die. Blah 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 blah. There's a whole backstory to it. The book just shows up, which is another reason I have an issue with it being a book, and I feel like it would have been better to have his behavioral issues manifest itself in a way that becomes the Babadook or something, because
that's fair.
I feel the same way about the mom. She's just kind of, I understand she's got these issues with the dad having passed away and all of this stuff, but she's not a good mother in a way that, like, because the whole front half of this movie, she's just kind of ignoring all of the stuff that he's doing.
Well, I think we're coming into it she's already dealt with this for what, 6 or 7 years, and that's why I think this movie actually might be there's a lot to say about postpartum depression, because he's 6 years old and the dad died 7 years ago, which means that either A, she was doing some extrajudiciary, or she got pregnant right before he died and then gave birth after he died.
No, he died on the day the kid was born.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, there you go.
On the way to the hospital.
Say that. Yep, that's right. They do say that. And so, like, I feel like it's got more to do with postpartum depression as far as her not caring. But we're also coming into this 6 years into her dealing with this already. So we could just be coming into it in the middle of her already being like, maybe he'll end up in the oven.
Well, and that's why I have such a hard time caring or getting emotionally invested in the characters and what's happening to them, because again, I'm going to repeat it. I didn't like any of the characters in this. They're all unlikable. And so it's like, I just kind of have a hard time caring what they're going through when I'm like, he's kind of that way because you haven't had anything to say other than you shouldn't be doing that. And that's kind of how you handle it.
Around her are going, take him to a specialist.
And I have that written and circled and stars around it. Just call a therapist.
And that to me is where we get where I start to jump on board with you going, she's a bad parent. Not because she's getting frustrated. I can only imagine the frustration of raising a child with special needs. I can't even wrap my head around it. And I have the utmost respect for people that can do it and be good parents. However, part of that is supplying them with the they need so that they and you can cope with the situation. But she's constantly just like, no. And then what does she do? She takes him out of school and he's sick and just takes it. That's what a parent does. Yep. It's so exemplary of like what not to do in this situation. And it's what I find myself. So it's such a, it's like a psychological parenting version of the horror trope of don't go upstairs. Like, don't do the stupid thing. Don't do the thing you're not supposed to do. Don't go up the stairs. Don't not take your kid to the specialist.
Well, and again, I think this is, I would have been okay with another 15 minutes of this or so, and all of that could have been used for stuff like this. It's very short, even though I have a very large issue with the pacing in this movie. Not a whole lot happens for the first 40 to 50 minutes, and it's only an hour and a half movie. So I feel like we could have almost used another 15 minutes of this and use your time battling him or going up against him or something, just more. We need more of everything. Everything is slightly touched on, but none of it is expanded enough in a way that makes me feel like it's complete, if that makes any sense.
You know, we never do get to find out how you get rid of a Babadook, but wouldn't it be great if you just like wrote your own pop-up book that defeated him and that's how you beat him?
Well,
like you just make your own and then just leave it open to where he has to read it.
Well, I think now might be a good time to call for spoilers, because I would like to get into some of the ending here. Okay. Because much like what you had an issue with Freddy, and I will link this podcast up top here, kind of all you have to do is just go, and the Babadook is like, oh my God, not holy shit, what am I gonna do? And then gets
you're nothing. No.
And then gets captured and is treated like a dog, where he's fed from a bowl every day.
I have this, like, we don't get to see him be, and I actually have some feelings on what you just said about the very, very end. I have I had this great image in my head as I'm watching it when she says you're nothing and he goes away. I just had this image of my head of him sulking his way and shimmying down to the liquor cabinet and just like drinking himself away. Like, she said I was nothing. Like somebody that just got turned down on like a third date. Like just going down, getting shit-faced drunk, and then just sulking his broken ass back into the basement. I'll be in my man cave, dude.
But do you remember that conversation that I think you're the one that brought it up in Nightmare?
Yeah.
The ending is just her going, I don't believe in you, and so you can't hurt me. And that ending is in this movie too. And to be fair, when she reads through the book, when he adds a bunch of stuff to the end of the book, it does say the more you, what's it say? The more you denounce or something, the stronger I am or something. I'm paraphrasing. But so it kind of tells you how to beat it right there. And so I just kind of felt like it's such, like you said before, they didn't really know how to end this. So like he ends up kind of as a pet.
No, so I have a theory on that.
Okay.
He's the dad.
He's the dad.
That's why they want to keep him. That's why the son goes, when can I go down and see him? That's why she's bringing him food. That's why when he freaks out, she's calming him down. I think the Babadook is the dad.
I mean, that's definitely interesting. That's something I had not, because the really bad CGI kill of the dad toward the end kind of wrote that off in my head, but that is an interesting theory.
Well, that's the thing. The only other thing the Babadook ever presents himself as is the dad.
Right.
He never takes another form. He always comes in the form of the dad.
Well, see, that raises a bunch of questions, though. Like, why is he doing this to bring him toward him?
Does it?
Or
how could you forgive him for putting you through this, even though he's dead now? Like, yeah, no, it's it actually somehow fucking makes it worse. Like, I would have been better off believing that the dinosaur noises were because he was a dinosaur now, and now they're keeping him and feeding him as their dino pet. He's basically a shitty Tamagotchi.
Well, I mean, I don't know if he's the dad or not, but I will say that ending is just terrible. I don't know. I have heard nothing but good things about this movie from from people who I respect their opinion on movies. And they're like, man, the Babadook is good, and they've given it good ratings and stuff. And like you said before, this is very highly regarded. And I don't get it. This is a very pretty package with not a lot inside of it. It's kind of a hollow experience. I didn't really care for it that much. Not only because of the pacing issues, but because of the ending. I think the ending, you change that ending. Now, I have no idea how you wrap all this up, and neither did they. Neither did they. Apparently,
make him go away. Like,
see,
it would have been such a better ending, even with the ridiculousness of it, her going, "You're nothing," and him pouting away to the liquor cabinet. Even with that ending, and then you just end it with him not being there anymore, you have this house is clean type of situation. That's better than we now have a Babadook that we pet and feed in the basement.
But do you not think that, like, I don't know, getting the kids some therapy or some help, if the Babadook is a manifestation of the kids' behavioral issues,
well,
getting the kids some help would be a better way to end all this?
You can't scare somebody not stupid. She's still dumb. Like, you can't do anything about that. No, I don't think that would fix anything. In fact, I think in her broken ass mind, I think it just justifies the way he is what he is. I think if anything, she goes for a priest. I think the sequel is her going for a priest.
Well, and a sequel, it's interesting you say that, because I have written down here.
No.
I have written down. No, just listen. I have written down here. I'm not going to say what you think I'm going to say. I have written down here, the Babadook can be captured. No wonder there's not a sequel, because
oh, thank God.
Because, like, he's not scary anymore. By the end of that movie, he's not scary. He's a
They ghostbustered him.
He's a pet.
They ghostbustered him. That's what they did. They captured him, and then they went, "You're mine. You're ours."
Like, it just doesn't make. It's just such a weak ending, and I don't know. Again, I don't know how you end it in a different way. I have no answers to that, but what I do know is that the ending that is in this is bad. It's just a bad ending.
No, I agree. It's bad. It doesn't explain it. It leaves way too much up to the imagination. Sometimes that's fun, but like I said,
but it's not. Sorry to cut you off, but it's not the stuff. It's not the imagination stuff that's fun in this, because usually your imagination runs away with what could this thing be, and how is this happening, and all that stuff. They answer all of that, but they don't answer any of the stuff that's important, like where he came from, why he's there, where'd the book come from. All of the stuff that's important, none of it is answered at all, and the stuff that would be fun to imagine is shown too much, so you're not imagining it enough. It's almost like Malignant, where when she's running backwards, do you remember that part? And I immediately went, oh, that's a spoiler for Malignant, just in case anybody. And I immediately, the moment I saw her running, I was like, oh, that's the back of her head. Oh, I just figured out this whole movie 35 minutes into it, and this is, like, not fun now. The Babadook is kind of the same way, where it's like, when she's going through that book, it tells you everything that's going to happen. And so for the rest of the movie, after she's found the book again on the porch, I'm going, okay, you're going to kill the dog, then you're going to try to strangle the kid, and then the Babadook's going to come out and get you, and then the movie's going to be over. Now, it didn't end. It didn't end that way, because that they went up against the Babadook and won by capturing him like a dog. But You know, it's just, it didn't leave anything up to the imagination. Huh?
Well, no, by making him pout. That's what they did. They made him pout. They made him pout, and it made him weak enough in his crying little emo state to you know, I guess put a collar around him. It's got to be a choke collar because he's not that loud anymore. And so, but the thing that bothers me the most, and like I said, I actually was on board with this movie until the very, very end. But the thing that bothered me that I'm now realizing as we're discussing it is we're never given a motive for the Babadook.
No, that's what I mean. They don't answer anything.
There's no, like, even a simple possession would have been an explanation, but it's just, there is a creature called the Babadook that no one else has ever heard of, apparently, which means what's the backstory there? Is he new? Is he making a name for himself? What's going on there? And so we're never given a motive for what he's doing. We never know why he's doing what he's doing, which again, just raises more questions that never end up getting answered.
Well, again, I think all of this can be solved by the Babadook being a physical manifestation of the kid's behavioral issues. All of it can be solved that way. It fixes everything.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, go ahead and give me your final thoughts and a rating on the Babadook.
Final thoughts on the Babadook. As I think everybody can tell, I did not dislike this movie as much as you did. I had my issues with it. I for sure had my issues with it. I do not think it's undeserving of praise, but I don't think it's deserving of the high amounts of praise that I've heard from people. Because like you said, I've heard from a lot of people very good things. It's got good ratings. It's not a bad movie. It's just not. There's just too much left. There's too many holes. There's too many holes in the storytelling and the plot. So I think all in all, I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10.
Okay. For me, this was pretty weak. I think that the camera work's fantastic. The lighting's good. There's some moments of real bad CGI, but I can see past that generally if there are other good things to like about it. And there are other things to like about this movie. The color palette is good, so the color grading is decent. I think the use of color in general is very nice. I also think that the set design is good. The production design in general is very good. It's very good. But unfortunately, that is not all a movie has to do to be considered good for me. This is a very pretty box with very little substance, and by substance I mean plot and answers in it. You know, you can dress something up as much as you want, but if it's deep as a puddle, then there's not a whole lot to jump into. And that's kind of how I feel about the Babadook. It's dressed up really nicely. The actors are great. That's something we haven't even touched on. That kid, phenomenal. Really good kid actor. Really good. The mom is really good too. And despite how I feel about the Babadook, I do feel like he could be a scary kind of horror icon, but you kill the possibility of that happening when you treat him like a dog at the end. Like,
he did become an LGBTQ plus icon there for a little bit. I don't know if you remember that.
No.
Yeah, it was actually really funny. I don't know the whole backstory, but yeah, he ended up showing up on like posters of like LGBTQ protests. It was actually pretty funny.
I mean, his design is great. I think design wise he's phenomenal. The voice needs to go. It needs to be changed to something scarier and something that makes.
Yeah, do some processing, man.
You got to do something.
I can make that. Dude, I can do that.
Yeah, I did not like his voice. But as a scary character, I could see this going 4 or 5 movies, to be honest. But in order for that to work, you have to give answers, and you have to give him a backstory. We have to know his motivation. We have to know all of these things. Freddy, by the end of Nightmare 1, I think he's a great parallel to this movie, I think. By the end of Nightmare 1, we know why Freddy is torturing these kids. I can't tell you why Babadook is torturing this family. Don't know. And by the end of it, he's not torturing anybody ever again because he's locked in a basement. And so you've taken any scare factor that he has and you've thrown it right out the window. And for me, that is just, I you know, as somebody who thinks in terms of, when it comes to horror, as somebody who thinks in terms of sequels and an entire, franchises, I don't know why you would end it this way. Now, with that being said, she probably didn't give a shit. This did really well for her, and I'm sure she went on to make other great things. But for me, when you're writing something like this, you have to keep in mind that if this does do well, the Babadook is a really scary character that could be used as a horror icon, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%.
But it just misses the mark because of the ending that you have here. And because the ending is so weak, it brings the whole thing down for me. So I'm going to rate this a 4 out of 10. There's stuff to love here, but it's not enough in any direction other than camera work, maybe. Other than lighting and camera work and the technical, this is technically a very good movie, but I don't care about any of the characters, and the plot is really super weak for me. So
yeah.
All right, you got anything else to say about this?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything on this one.
All right, well, if you guys like this, make sure you hit the like button. If you really liked it, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because we've got a lot more content like this on this channel. This is kind of what we do around here. We talk about horror movies and actually other non-horror related movies, not so much recently, but we do other movies as well. And this is kind of our whole jam. So let us know what you think of The Babadook. Am I stupid for thinking this is a bad movie? Is this one of your favorite movies ever? Keep it respectful, and we will have a conversation about it down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys next time from the deep. Bye-bye.
Bye, Tom.